Hi everybody, it's Gemma. Welcome back to Pampered Wolf. You're probably now looking at me going, what has she done? She hurt herself? What? That looks really strange today. You would be right. I have not hurt myself. I have one half of my face completed with my natural go-to everyday makeup. There you go. If I look this way, you probably wouldn't notice a difference. But on this side, I have zero makeup whatsoever. It just looks a little bit strange when you see the front view and it's like, whoa. Rather odd. Anyway, you are going to have to put up with this for a little bit throughout this video, but all will become clear a little bit later on. Today we are going into how to choose the correct foundation and concealer shade for your skin. So let's jump straight in. Okay, so predominantly this video is going to revolve around two different things that is so important to get right, otherwise your foundation will never match your natural skin tone perfectly to a T. Now the first one we're going to talk about today is undertone. Undertone is so important because if you get it wrong, your skin can actually look orange, it can look ashy, you'll look ill. So I've actually done a separate video on skin's undertone, which I highly recommend you watch before you carry on watching this video if you don't know what your skin's undertone is. I will link it up here for you. But there are three different undertones. So there's warm, where your skin will have golden, yellowy undertones. There's cool, where your skin will have more pinky undertones. And there's neutral, where you will have an equal balance of both pink and golden undertones. And I am a neutral undertone. I've come to terms with the fact that if I cannot find a foundation with a neutral undertone, if it's verging more onto the warm side or verging more onto the pink side, I don't buy it, because I know once it's on my face, I will either look ill or I will look orange. It really won't be a great match for me, so I steer clear of anything without a neutral undertone in it now. Believe me, I have gone out and I've filmed in some rather interesting choices of foundation that have been completely the wrong undertone for me, and it's been so noticeable. A lot of you have actually noticed. It takes a while to hone in to the correct undertone, but once you've done it, your undertone will never ever change. Your skin shade will change as you tan or as you get paler into the winter, but your skin's undertone will never change. So once you've figured out what your undertone is, you're onto a winner. It's not going anywhere. You will always be the same undertone for the rest of your life. So I am a neutral undertone. The second thing that this video is going to revolve around is your skin tone. Your skin tone, the shade of your skin. Are you fair complexion? Do you have a light skin? Are you a medium skin tone? Tanned, deep? You need to know what your actual skin shade or tone is. Don't get this mixed up with undertone, it's completely different. So when you tan, you will be a different skin tone to when you are pale in the winter time. Completely different. So you may have two different foundations, one for the winter and one for the summer as you get darker and lighter throughout the year. But you need to know what your skin tone is. Okay, so my first bit of advice for everybody, and this may seem like completely common sense, but believe me, I have got this wrong so many times. So my first bit of advice for everybody is when you are looking for the right shade of foundation, pick the shade of foundation that actually matches the shade of your skin. Now, you may be saying, well, why would I do anything differently? Well, I often go out and pick the shade of foundation for the skin that I actually want, not the skin that I actually have. I would really like my skin to be darker than it actually is. My natural skin shade, I am whiter than a ghost. I am the lightest shade in a lot of foundations. Would I like to be darker? Yes, I would. Do I often pick foundations that are darker than I should pick? Yes, I do, because I think I look a little bit healthier like that. Wrong. Pick the foundation that matches your skin shade. Honestly, you won't regret it. You can deepen it up using bronzers, you can add a little bit of colour using blush, but don't pick a foundation that is deeper than your natural skin tone, because you will regret it down the line. If you've got loads of those foundations in your arsenal, then save them for the summer months when maybe your skin is a little bit deeper in colour. But I am so guilty of this. So if you are in my club of actually wanting deeper skin and buying foundation that is too dark for you, whoop whoop, here we are. We're all in a little club all together. So that is my first piece of advice. Make sure the foundation shade that you pick is the same shade as your skin. I'm going to show you some of my best matches on my arm, and you will see that they are all completely different. Okay, so as you can see, all these shades are completely different. In fact, you would question that these are all great matches for my skin tone, because they are so different, but they all look really nice on my skin. So from left to right, we've got DIOR in 0N, which is my closest match. We've also got MAC in NW13, Bare Minerals in Birch 1.5, number 7 in Calico, Lancome in 005, YSL in BD20, which is slightly too warm for my skin, Revlon in 200, which is Nude, and Revolution Pro, which is also a great match for my skin, which is F1. Now, as you saw, all those foundations were completely different. Really difficult to believe that they are all really good matches for my skin. But actually, once they're on, they look really nice. Apart from possibly the YSL, which maybe I shouldn't have included within the swatches because it's a little bit too warm for my skin. It is called Warm Ivory at the end of the day. Should have been a hint for me. But anyway, you need to get both of those things correct in order for you to have a seamless look to your foundation and your concealer. So you must get your undertone right. If you get your undertone right and you get the skin tone wrong, it's not going to look right. Again, if you get the skin tone right but you get the undertone wrong, it's not going to look right. You must get both of those correct. So when you're trying to find the shade of foundation that suits your skin tone, you need to keep one thing in mind. Our bodies are like jigsaws, and we need to bring the picture on the jigsaw together without seeing any of the lines that the pieces create. So our neck is one piece, our chest is another piece, our face is another piece, and often these are completely different colours, especially if you are an SPF freak like me. I like to cover myself, in fact, 50 on my face and on my neck, and yet I'm a little bit more liberal where the sun's concerned in this area here. So I often end up with my chest and my shoulders being a completely different colour to my neck and my face. You need to pick an area to colour match, because obviously you don't want to go out with a completely white face and then the rest of your body be really tanned. In that situation, I would pick your chest to colour match with. And it's for this reason that I always recommend that when you are going to be colour matched, or when you are trying to colour match yourself, you wear a top where you can see your chest area. You need to be able to see the entire picture, the entire jigsaw. So you need to be able to see your face, your neck, and your chest. Don't wear a polo neck top, because you won't get the right result if you can't see everything as one together. So that's my next tip. Wear a little bit of a low top so you can see the whole jigsaw as one piece, and then pick a body part to colour match. There is no right or wrong answer. I like to colour match to my neck because I like a seamless blend, but in the summertime when my chest is a little bit darker, then maybe, even though my face is still pale because I don't tan my face, I wear a really high SPF, I will colour match to my chest to make sure that we get a seamless picture without seeing any of the joins in the jigsaw, if that makes sense. Now there are a few categories when it comes to trying to find the best shade of foundations. So you've got your high-end foundations where you can often go into store and be colour matched. You've got trying to pick the right shade of foundation on the internet, and you've also got going into the drugstore and trying to colour match yourself. All three of these hold different challenges. Okay, so let's talk about high-end makeup first. So obviously you can go into store and get colour matched, but know your undertone before you go in. Now obviously they can try and guide you in the right direction, but usually they will get it wrong if you don't go in with a completely bare face. It's really, really important that if you are going to be colour matched in store, you don't wear any makeup whatsoever. Now, you may think this is a completely trivial thing, but believe me, I have done both. I've gone in with a full face of makeup and I've gone in with a bare face. And the only time I've ever got my correct shade of foundation is when I've gone in with a completely bare face. Now, it might be traumatizing for a few people, and at first I found it traumatizing myself, but 20 minutes of trauma is worthwhile getting the perfect shade rather than getting home and realizing it's the wrong shade for you. So there is a reason why you should go in with no makeup. So let's just talk about that first of all. Now, usually when you go in and you've got a full face of makeup, they will take a little bit of makeup off your skin. They won't take off the whole lot. They'll just take a little bit off your jawline, and then they'll put 2 separate swipes or 3 separate swipes of foundation there where you pick the one that you like. Now, the foundation should completely blend into your skin, so it should be invisible. The one that you pick is the one that you end up not being able to see when it's blended into your skin. And that is far more difficult to see when you've got a full face of makeup, even when you've got a patch of it missing, because your eye blends all the colours together. And if you've got bronzer on like I've got on today, you've got blush on, you've got a little bit of contour, you blend all those colours together and you end up going for a shade that is too dark for your natural skin tone. Whereas that cannot happen when you go in with a face that's completely clear of makeup. Let me just show you, because I have 2 different foundations. Well, it's the same foundation but in 2 different shades. One's my winter shade and one is my summer shade. So I'm going to take a little bit of this makeup off. Let me just do that. Okay, so as you can see, I've taken off a patch of my makeup, which is clearly a lot paler than the rest of my skin, because I've got my blush, I've got my contour and bronzer on the top, which is all blended in nicely so that you really couldn't tell that my skin was actually that pale underneath. So I've got a shade here. I'm going to put a little bit of a swipe on there, a bit more on. And then we're going to put the other shade practically next to it. Now, if you were to look at those now, the one that was disappearing into my skin was the darker shade. This is the one that I would go for if I was in store now. This one looks far, far too pale for my skin. But let me show you on the other side. So let me just show you on this side. So as you can see here, when I've got no makeup on my face, this is the paler shade and it's actually the perfect match for my skin. It blends in beautifully and it completely disappears into my neck. Whereas this shade, which was the perfect match on this side with a full face of makeup, is actually far too dark for my skin. Both of them are the correct undertone, so they are both a neutral undertone. They're both by Dior, they're both exactly the same foundation. One of them is in 0N, which is the correct shade for me, which is the paler shade. And the other one is 1.5N, which is my summer colour. So on this side, you will see I would be colour matched completely wrongly when I had a full face of makeup on, whereas on this side, I would be colour matched correctly. You can always deepen the shade of a foundation with a bit of bronzer and just liven it up a little bit with a bit of blush or highlight. But if you get the shade wrong, you are going to be blending for the rest of your life. So I hope you've seen from this experiment that going in without any makeup on is the easiest way of getting the correct foundation shade for your natural skin shade. So my next tip is again to do with high-end foundation. When you go into store and get colour matched, obviously the assistant has spent some time with you making sure that you get the correct colour match in store. They might have put other products on your skin, and often you feel obligated to actually make a purchase there and then. And my next tip is don't buy the foundation as soon as it's been put on your face. One, these department stores, so many of them have the worst lighting in history. I have no idea why they do it, but it's just terrible, terrible lighting. You must go and see the foundation in natural lighting before you make your decision. Also, I would really recommend wearing the foundation for at least an hour to see if it oxidizes on your skin before you make the purchase. Now, oxidization is when your foundation reacts with either the skincare that you're wearing or the oxygen in the air as you're walking around, and it deepens in colour. It might go slightly orangey or a little bit warmer on your skin or a little bit pinker on your skin and deepen in shade a little bit. And you don't want the foundation to do that. So definitely don't buy it as soon as you've been colour matched. Walk around for at least an hour and preferably get a sample and take it home and try it over a few days. Okay, so let's just touch on buying foundations from the internet, whether that is a high-end foundation or a drugstore foundation. Now, often if you do buy on the internet a lot, you will know that the really good sites, usually this is high-end, doesn't often happen with drugstore, but some of the drugstore brands are really upping their game, especially Revolution. Revolution are brilliant for this. Often they have a detailed description of all their shades. It will tell you if it's neutral, it will tell you if it's cool or warm, and then there'll be a numbering system for the actual shade of your skin tone. So 1 will obviously be fair. 2, 3 is often in the fair to light category. Once you start getting up to 4, 5, 6, that's usually in your medium tone category. And then above that is more tanned or deeper shades. So always look at the numbering system. It will often give a detailed description of who this is going to be suitable for. So I always go for a neutral shade, and I generally go for shades 1, 2, or 3, depending on what time of the year it is. But if it was now, I would probably go for 1. I mean, in Dior makeup, I am 0. Not even on the scale. I am practically transparent. Honestly, Revolution Pro, I am F1. So you can see that we're more or less around the same number range, 0, 1, and I might be 2 in another foundation, but always, always neutral. Okay, so let's just move on to picking the correct shade of foundation in the drugstore, which is a whole different kettle of fish. I have no idea what that means, by the way. Is that even a phrase across the entire of the world, or is it just in Yorkshire? You're all looking at me like, what did she say? Kettle? Fish? Who puts fish in kettles? I have no idea. Let's rephrase. It has many, many challenges. very, very different. And the reason why it's so difficult to pick the correct shade in the drugstore is because most of the foundations don't say whether they are neutral, cool, or warm. You have to guess. There are some assumptions that are made. So if a foundation has the name rose in it, usually that's cool because roses are generally pink. They can be pink. So you assume that that would be cool. Some of them say warm ivory or cool ivory, so that's a giveaway, but very few of them give hints on whether they are neutral. It's very, very difficult to find the correct foundation for a neutral undertone skin in the drugstore. So I've got a little trick for you for finding the correct shade of foundation in the drugstore, because drugstore lighting is horrific, and in the UK they've started removing all the mirrors or putting them really, really high up because they don't really want you to try on the things in store. So this is what I suggest you do. Now, usually in high-end places, you get these little pots with lots of samples in. If you go in and ask for a sample from Smashbox, this is generally the pot that it comes in. I keep these in my handbag. I have probably 3 or 4 of these in my handbag at once. They have a little bit of masking tape on the bottom, and I always carry a pen round with me. And instead of swatching it on my skin, I just dispense a little bit into the jar, and I do everything at home when I've got no makeup on my face, and I can have a look to see whether it completely blends into my skin. Now, obviously you've got to ask a member of staff if you can do this, otherwise it looks like you're stealing. It is a little bit cheeky taking some of the product away, but you do it in a more high-end environment. I don't see why it should be a faux pas to do this in the drugstore. Take a little sample away with you and try it at home, and then you've got a couple of days worth of the product so that you can try it, see whether it suits your skin, and you're not wasting your money. Again, this is a huge thing in the UK because in the UK you can't take back products that you've opened. In the US, you are so lucky you can buy a few items, see which one is the best colour match for you, and take the rest back. Can't do that here in the UK. So I highly recommend going out and getting a few of these pots. You can buy them so cheap, or be a bit cheeky and just go to MAC and ask for a few samples and then wash them out. Should I have said that? I just did. So let's move on to concealers. So many people have asked me how you actually choose a concealer shade over the last few months. So I'm going to answer that right now. It's so simple. If you've already got a handle on your correct foundation shade, then it's really easy. But there are 2 areas that you need different shades for. So if you want to brighten the under eye, you need a different shade to if you are spot concealing. Now generally, especially if the spot is just red but it's flat, you want to be going over the spot with a concealer that is exactly the same shade as your foundation. Exactly the same shade. You do not want to go any lighter than your foundation colour. If you go lighter, it will highlight the spot, it will draw it forward, making it look more prominent and more noticeable, and the last thing you want to do with a spot is do that. Underneath the eyes, you can do one of 2 things. You can use a concealer that is exactly the same shade as your foundation. That is absolutely fine. But if you want a brightening effect underneath my eyes, and I like that brightening look, you need to go for a concealer that is 1 to 2 shades lighter than your foundation colour. 1 to 2 shades lighter, no paler than that, otherwise your skin will start to look really ashy and you'll look slightly ill. Really ill. So let me just make this point really quickly, because I don't want you to assume that if you were to buy, say from Estee Lauder and you were 1.5N, that if you were to buy the same shade in concealer, that it would match perfectly. Sometimes it does, but it's really important to get colour matched for concealers as well as it is to get colour matched for foundations. The reason I say this is because a lot of brands have now started making their concealers 1 to 2 shades paler than their foundations to help you out with the under eye brightening. So say in MAC, I am an NW13 in foundation, but I'm actually an NW15 in concealer because their concealers are considerably paler than their foundation. So it's really, really important to get colour matched for concealers as well as foundations. And the same rules apply for undertone. Always go for the same undertone that you are naturally, whether it's a foundation or a concealer that you're buying. So I hope you found this video helpful. This is such a hard topic to master. And it's very, very recently that I've come to terms with the fact that there are some brands of foundation and concealer that I just can't buy. And it's either because they don't have my undertone, or maybe they have my undertone, but they don't have the correct shade for me. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope it will make it easier for you to pick the correct shade of foundation in the future. And I hope that the little experiment that we did with the full face of makeup and the bare face of makeup really helped you understand why it's so important to go and get colour matched with no makeup on whatsoever. No matter how funny I have looked throughout this entire video, I am now going to go and even myself up and put makeup on both sides of my face. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Before you leave, there is a watermark in this corner. If you click on it, it will take you through to my homepage where you can subscribe. Hope to see you all again in the next video. Bye!